So it turns out that I was wrong for like the past 2 episodes because I have kept saying that this movie has nothing to do with Halloween other than it has a stupid pumpkin in it. And it turns out there is a Halloween party in it.
Yes. Yeah, this is a very, very Halloweeny, Halloween-esque movie. Very much so. And the main villain or ghost or whatever you want to call it is very much a symbol of part of one of the symbols of Halloween. So I think it's very much a Halloween movie.
See how you use this term in your little intro there. How about I give you a family-friendly sort of kind of Halloween-related joke that I know Svengoolie wouldn't even use. Are you ready?
Sure.
How come the witch can't get pregnant?
I don't know. How come the witch can't get pregnant?
Because her husband has a Halloweenie.
Yeah, that is a perfect Svengoolie joke. Or what, did you say he wouldn't use it?
I don't think he'll use it because he wouldn't use my boobies joke.
Yeah. Oh. That's great. I love it.
So what did the ghost say to the bee?
Something about boobies.
Booby.
Excellent. I love it.
And the reason why I'm throwing kid-friendly jokes out there because this is our annual kid-friendly S&M radio episode.
Yeah, didn't we? We did Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin, or whatever it's called, or the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown.
Yep.
Had it reversed it.
And then the year before that, we did all 10 Halloween movies. Make sure you sit your kid through that 2-hour mess that was. But that was our first episode, so.
But you know, Halloween is a very kid-friendly holiday. This is about the kids. You know, they get to wear the costumes, they get to go get the candy, carve the pumpkins, enjoy the Affy Tapples and the popcorn balls and all that good stuff. So, you know, we got to give one for them. And you know, we're still kids at heart. You know, all this stuff about the horror movies and everything, that was kind of like our childhood is where this all began. So today, thinking about that and you know, going back and reminiscing about all the different Halloween memories. Well, you know, the Halloween cartoons were a big part of childhood, you know, so let's do this.
Yeah, I just hope it cools down in the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, your kids are going to be out there in underwear with their freaking Halloween costumes on. Check local listings, but it is 80 degrees at my house today. It is insane.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And supposedly, I was watching earlier, we didn't even break a record today. I was like, really? How did we not break a record? Like, crazy out there.
I do remember one Halloween, and it was the year that Saw came out, so whatever year that was. It was like a really warm...
1978.
Nope.
No.
I think you're 20 years behind.
It was
that was a warm Halloween night, I remember that. But anyhow, I digress. So tonight's movie is actually one of my all-time favorite stories, based off of the how long? No, I'm sorry. We got to go back even further than the 1900s. We got to go back to the year 1820. We've got Washington Irving's classic, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And the version that we are going to talk about today is, in my opinion, the best interpretation of said story. And it's the Walt Disney Productions version that came out in 1949, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Which I'm pretty sure was before even any of our parents were around.
Yeah, I think you're right. My folks don't have any, I mean, because I've been watching this since I was a kid, and it was never anything on their radar. So they must not have cared back in 1949.
Yeah,
or, you know, whenever.
I was wondering about that. I haven't seen anything, and I think the part of the reason why is because, like you had said, you had made the point to point out that we're talking about the Disney version of this because when you try to search for The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, there's a whole slew of different cartoons that were made for this, movies that were made for this, that same exact name, but I couldn't find any statistics on that as far as when and where it was played, because I know, like when we were talking about Charlie Brown last year, how that was played like every year, forever. But
Ichabod was too. It was on the Disney Channel. They used to play this. They had what would you call it? The last couple weeks of October, they had like this. The Disney Channel would do this whole like Halloween themed show. And do you remember that? It had like the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern that hosted.
I never watched Disney Channel when I was a kid. I know.
Okay.
We were at a hotel this past weekend, and we had Disney Channel on because my kids are in love with like some of the Disney shows now, which is kind of funny because my kids are 16 and 14. But they they love these shows that are for like 10-year-olds.
Right.
But anyway, we had the Disney Channel on Saturday night, and it was Monstober.
Yeah.
But that was, I mean, everybody does like that kind of stuff really early now. So probably if what you're talking about, yeah, you're probably right. It's probably like the week of Halloween or like maybe the 2 weeks before Halloween. But yeah, I couldn't find anything to where it said like every year on such and such, because I know when we first talked about doing this one, we first said, okay, we've got to come up with like a family-friendly show to talk about, or movie or whatever, and you suggested this one, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I kept thinking in the back of my head that this was a full-length movie for some reason.
Okay.
And then I remember I was telling you before that I wasn't actually sure when I first started, when I actually watched it, was like, well, that was only like 30 minutes long. Was that the right thing? But because it was so, with the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, because there was so much out there, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if that's the right one or not. And then it was, but it's just weird that it was only so short. I guess I don't know why I keep thinking that it was longer than that.
Well, I don't know if, no, it's always been a short film, a very short one. Actually, when I remember being really little and seeing like the Headless Horseman scene where, he's chasing Ichabod through the forest, the end of the thing. I remember seeing that. And then I remember renting a Disney cartoon or something as a little kid, and like at the beginning or the end of the movie they had like an advertisement for all the Disney cartoons that like you could rent or buy or whatever. And this was back in the 80s. This is probably mid 80s when I saw this. They showed those clips from Sleepy Hollow of Ichabod getting chased by the Headless Horseman, and I was like, oh crap, I remember that. And this is a kid, I remember, because I had seen it on TV or whatever. And then a year later or something, we were at the video store and I found it. When the release that I saw, I think, was the 1984 VHS, one of the first VHS releases of the film, and they had Sleepy Hollow and they had two other Disney Halloween themed cartoons attached to it, and that was like what my first like return to it as a kid, and then we used to rent it all the time. Actually, the original film that was released in the theaters was connected with the Wind in the Willows short. So it was an hour-long film because it was two 30-minute short films. It was and it was actually called Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which now if you go and purchase the DVD, which I own, like it has both of them on there, and they both start out the same, where like you go into like this old Gothic library and they pull out the classic book and then open the book and then it starts the story. Because I always thought that was kind of weird that when I was a kid, I would rent Wind in the Willows as well. And so Wind in the Willows and Legend of Sleepy Hollow both had like a very similar opening where it was like, you'd see this bookshelf and they pull the book off the shelf and like the movie would be kind of like started from there. And the reality was it was all one movie. Back then it was just with two stories connected. But yeah, so and then anyhow, and then they played this we were talking about how it was played annually every year around Halloween time, and that started back in 1982, and when they aired the Disney's Halloween Treat. And originally I thought this was on the Disney Channel. I think they ended up moving it to that, but it started out on CBS. So it was kind of like all the Disney themed horror, like Halloween related shows, and Ichabod was one of the cartoons they'd always show. But yeah, I would, and it was funny because when I finally rented this, I remember renting it. It was 1984, 85 when I rented it. It was wintertime. I know it's crazy that I remember all this, but I remember like looking at the cover of the VHS box at the video store, and it showed, you know, the Headless Horseman and all that, and like, oh, cool, this is that cartoon I've been looking for. And then bringing it home, we put it in, and it's like you're watching this thing, and like there's no Headless Horseman, nothing. I mean, it's all this whole like has nothing to do with anything scary all the way through the beginning of the film, or it's a short film, but and then it's all the way at the end that all that stuff happens. And I remember thinking, is this the right one? And then finally, yeah, it gets going at the time that they get to the Halloween party, and then obviously Ichabod's trek home by himself in the woods. And then I was hooked at that point. I went back and I tried to get all kinds of different versions of the novel. You know, they had a lot of, if you read the original Washington Irving novel, it's just a pain to read. It's so much description. It's a terrible read. It's not enjoyable at all. But they had some like more made for kids versions of the novel where you could understand it a little better, less yeah, but it's a really tough book to read, or story.
As you were saying that, I was like, I just was having these flashbacks of us sitting in the movie theater earlier this year watching The Witch, and you going, I can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like an old English type film, or a novel, I mean.
Yeah, the story really is about Ichabod Crane. I mean, nowadays, if they were to make this TV show or whatever you want to call it, 30-minute long thing, if they made this and tried to sell it to kids, there's no way it would happen. Because, I mean, you have this character, this Ichabod Crane, and I've never read the book, so I don't know if he's exactly this way in the book or not. I would imagine that he probably somewhat was, knowing the history of Disney. But you have this character, Ichabod Crane, who's this kind of tall, scrawny, stringy, goofy-looking guy, but somehow he's really charming. But he's going out and he's a partier, and he has all these ways with women, but yet he's very superstitious. And the 30-minute show is pretty much 28 minutes of Ichabod getting it on with everybody in town.
Yeah, it's funny because the novel is very much, I mean, even his physical description is very much how they animated him in the cartoon. Long spindly neck, long nose, big ears, feet were like shovels and all that stuff. It's all in there. Walks like a scarecrow. So like Disney did such an incredible job of bringing that whole story to life. And it's funny because there's been a lot of interpretations of this story. There was, the Jeff Goldblum film that you and I kind of talked about. There's some other cartoons here and there. And then there's even the Tim Burton film that came out in the late 90s. That was pretty much, I think it was a box office success. And out of all of those interpretations, my vote goes for this Disney version. I really think that Disney just knocked it out of the park. Like, I mean, like really the whole story, and and all the imagery towards the end in the woods with the way, oh my gosh, how they animate the the crickets and the frogs and the moon and the sky and the woods and the owls and all the stuff that goes on in that final scene in the forest at the end of the story. It's just amazing. I don't think any of those other interpretations even hold a candle to this.
Like I said, I haven't read the book before, but I would tend to think that, like I said before, with what I know of what Disney would do with some of these movies back in those days, because I always wondered that at the beginning when the narrator is describing him, I'm like, that almost sounds like he's reading it off of a page. Like,
yeah, I think a lot of that is like almost directly quoted from the story,
that's kind of cool. The other really interesting thing about this particular adaptation of this story is that Bing Crosby does pretty much the entire voiceover work for this entire thing. And there is a bit of a musical aspect to it because it is a Disney movie, so there's a lot of Bing singing, but he's also doing all the voices and stuff, which is kind of cool because at first when I was just watching this the other day, I was kind of like, oh, this might be kind of weird because I haven't seen it in forever. And then, but towards the end, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool.
It is sort of a musical in a lot of ways. I mean, there's music all throughout this whole thing. And I mean, if you're not ready for that, if you're not up for that, you might not enjoy it. But I think the songs are so well written. I think it just works perfectly for the story. You know, and just from Ichabod's introduction into the town, you know, then the final, you know, song where Brom Bones is telling the story of the Headless Horseman at you know, Katrina Van Tassel's father's Halloween party and all that stuff. I mean, I really think this is a brilliant piece of art, and it really captures I even, to be honest with you, there's 3 Halloween cartoons I've watched pretty much every year with my kids, and actually this year probably will be the first I don't watch them because I think they've finally graduated out of, like, I don't want to watch Halloween cartoons with you anymore, Dad. So, but
Dad,
it was,
grow up.
Yeah, I know. But it's this one, Charlie Brown, and Garfield's
Shrek.
Halloween.
Oh,
Those 3 are like my top 3 favorite Halloween cartoons. And I have to say, this one takes the cake. I mean, even above Charlie Brown, I think this one really, for me, is the ultimate Halloween cartoon. And it goes back to the imagery and the way that those animators did those final scenes, you know, in the forest, and the ghost story, and then like the whole, you know, the Halloween party at the, you know, in the barn with the dancing and all that stuff, and then the spooky tales. I just think it's so well done. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, I'm a big fan of this cartoon and this story.
if you had to rate this amongst other, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we should give it a little rundown too of what the story's about.
I think we kind of sort of did, but yeah, I mean, it basically is Ichabod Crane. He goes to this little town, Sleepy Hollow, and he's the new schoolmaster, which essentially at that time would have been, because this is back in like the 1700s. So that basically meant he was the teacher, and I would assume that school in Sleepy Hollow was like all the other schools that are depicted like in that time, like in Anne of Green Gables or any of those other stories of that time, to where it was like a one-room school. And then I from some of the scenes in this one too, it looked like he even lived there.
Yeah, he lived, he did.
Like we said before, he's this tall, lanky, goofy-looking guy, but he somehow, even though he has this really goofy-looking appearance, he is winning over the hearts of everybody in town. And then there's this Brom Bones guy who's like the rough and tough kind of bad boy in town, and he is like trying to do his best to outwit and beat up. I don't know if beat up's necessarily the right word, but I mean, there's a couple of times where he tries to throw a punch at him, but basically he's trying to outdo Ichabod, and he basically has no luck at every turn. And then, like you had said, he falls in love with this Katrina Van Tassel, and she invites him to this Halloween party. And they end up at this Halloween party, and then they tell this story about the Headless Horseman. And then kind of the climax of the whole thing is Ichabod riding his horse back home, and he goes through the woods, and he's going through the cemetery. And that ending of that whole cemetery woods scene is fairly creepy. I mean,
it is.
You know, I can't imagine watching that like with the TV. You know, you're sitting in the living room, laying on the floor in front of the TV, and your mom and dad are probably off in the other room doing something, and you're in there watching Charlie Brown and and you got this on and something else on or whatever, and you get the lights low, and you're like, woo, watching, and you're kind of like, do, 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 and singing along with Bing Crosby, and then all of a sudden you got this dark, scary scene, and you got this headless guy chasing you around, trying to cut his head off, and he's got this flaming pumpkin.
Right.
And then the end of this movie, Disney has done this a few times back in those days. They kind of really don't do this anymore. They sometimes maybe will a little bit, but this is one of those cliffhangers, really, because Ichabod goes through the covered bridge, and part of the tale was, if you make it through the covered bridge, you'll be just fine. And the Headless Horseman is standing on the other side of the bridge, and then he throws the pumpkin through the covered bridge, and then it kind of fades to, not black, but it like kind of fades to white, and you're the next day, and you see these hoof tracks in the dirt road, and there's a crushed pumpkin there, and then there's this narrator comes in, and he's like, oh, they found Ichabod's hat in the mud, but we've never found Ichabod. And you're kind of like, wait, what happened to him? Where'd he go?
Yeah, they leave it open like that. And there's a few interpretations of that ending, too. You know, they kind of allude to the fact that either he got scared off, ran away, and then, you know, started some family in some other town down, you know, wherever. Another theory that has been kind of bounced around that was that, first of all, there's the way they present it, and that would be that there really is a ghost, and that, you know, it had somehow spirited him away during this chase scene. That's the one I typically stick with. That's one I like to say that's what happened. But then there's another third possibility that's kind of been bounced around, that what really happened was Brom Bones had gone in, because, you know, the whole story is basically, you know, Ichabod is kind of trying to get close to Katrina Van Tassel, who is like this, you know, like the richest girl in town. You know, her dad's the richest farmer, and all this. And Brom Bones was kind of like her guy. And then so, in order to scare him off, he did the whole headless horse, you know, disguised himself as the headless horseman, and, you know, basically spooked him out of town, and that was it. And so that was it. There's another in the novel, kind of leads you like wondering if that could be a possibility as well. But yeah, like I said, like the one I tend to stick with is the one that, yeah, the ghost was real, you know, and it spirited him away, as the narrator says at the end of the film.
I don't know if I'm a big fan of that term, spirited him away.
Kind of a strange concept, but yeah, like, you know, he's gone or whatever, you know, however a ghost would, whatever it would do to you, you know, take you to the Netherland.
To the Netherlands? Yeah, I've always wanted to visit there. I heard it's nice.
Yeah. But so that's that's kind of how it goes with that. But yeah, for me, this movie really kicks into overdrive once that Halloween party starts. Like, I mean, I love all the opening stuff. I love the way they draw the Sleepy Hollow town, and I like, you know, you get to know the characters, and, you know, and the schoolhouse, and Ichabod and what he's like, and he's kind of a goofball, but, you know, he's, you know, this charming guy and all this, and he kind of can kind of sneak his way into things, and I love all that stuff. But really where it gets going to me is when Brom Bones starts the story, like they're all sitting around the fireplace talking about it, and it's like, now we're in a Halloween territory right here. It's
enjoyable, that's for sure. I wonder if, and I haven't seen any of them in a long time. I saw the Tim Burton one in the theaters. I've never seen it since then, so I don't really remember it. But I wonder, of all of the other versions of this story, how many of them have the same ending?
The Tim Burton film is way, I mean, Ichabod is a constable. You know, he's investigating the death of, you know, in Sleepy Hollow, and there's a whole, like, there's a witch who controls the headless horseman, and I mean there's all these weird backstory, and then you see the headless, and then Christopher Walken is the headless horseman, so you see him with his head, and and they kind of explain how that happened and how he loses his head, and the Tim Burton film, and I'm a Tim Burton fan, but just because, and Tim Burton was a fan of the Disney one too, and actually there's a few shots, there's more than a few that he copies directly from the Disney cartoon. Like he's got the frogs that say Ichabod. He's got a shot where the Van Tassel barn opens, and he shoots it almost exactly the way that the cartoon has it. And there's a bunch of stuff like that in it. The story to me just fell completely flat. And I mean, changing Ichabod from the school teacher to a police officer, it didn't work. Although I thought Johnny Depp did an okay job in the character, it didn't work for me. And I think it's one of those. This is one of those cartoons or stories where I really honestly think that Disney one just really took the Washington Irving story and interpreted it in such an enjoyable and fun way, and kept to the core of the story, but at the same time really just elaborated in terms of the visuals and everything. It's just I don't think I don't even know if this can be done as a film, to be honest with you.
I'm a huge Tim Burton fan too, but yeah, that movie, I don't know, I saw it in the movie theater and I was like, and I was never one to go in with any preconceived conception of what the Sleepy Hollow should be or how it should be portrayed. But yeah, that was one of the movies that I saw of his, and then I was just like, I don't care, whatever. And I've never rewatched it. My wife loves that movie, and she's watched it a bunch of times, and she'll be like, hey, you want to watch it? No, I don't.
Really? I thought she didn't like gore.
Well,
the movie's filled with...
Is it? Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen it since '99 or whenever it came out. But
there's more heads that get lopped off in that movie than in any Friday the 13th movie.
But even Johnny Depp's, Johnny Depp was in it, but Tim Burton's Dark Shadows movie that everybody hated, I was like, oh, that was great. And there's a few other ones too. I haven't checked that one out yet. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's okay. It's one of those, if you're a fan of the original show, it's kind of...
I never saw it.
But yeah, I'm a big I keep saying I'm a big Johnny Depp. I'm not a big Johnny Depp fan. I'm a big Tim Burton fan for sure. When I watched it the other day, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And then when I got done, I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty cool. And then even I went out VHS hunting earlier today, and I was trying to find that a version of it, because like you had said early on, there was a couple of different versions of it out there that Disney had put out on VHS, to where it was in different video collaborations with other short films. And then there's the one where it was Disney's The Tales of Ichabod and Mr. Toad or something, it's that one and the Wind in the Willows.
Yep.
But I couldn't find it. So
yeah, I have the one of the VHS versions I picked up in the late 90s, and got that, and then I've got the DVD. That DVD is great, and you actually just saw it at Target the other day in the Halloween section, by the candy and all that stuff. They have all the kids' movies. Yeah, highly recommend it.
We're probably going to end up being at a longer episode than the show is, which is, I was wondering if we were going to do that or not. We'll see once editing's done how long we turn out to be. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with our final Halloween-themed movie of 2016.